Welcome to the quick start video for the NK180PRO Electric Kayak Outboard Motor. This video will cover all the things you need to know to get up and running for your first outing with your NK180PRO. We've made some awesome improvements to this version of the NK180 over the original. We've given it a new prop, an updated color scheme, product logo on the retract bar, and it comes a little more ready to install right out of the package, but there's still some things you're gonna wanna get familiar with. All that's required for installation of this motor mount is a flat spot about that big. The bolt pattern is 3.75 inches by 4.75 inches, so as long as you can accommodate that pattern, you're good to go. There's plenty of aftermarket adapters that give a kayak that doesn't have that flat spot built into it a flat spot for mounting this. So Innovative Sportsman manufacturers adapter plates, Tim Percy manufactures adapter plates, but if your kayak doesn't already have a flat spot to accept the PowerPole Micro bolt pattern, which is the same bolt pattern shared with our motor mount, there's plenty of options out there for motor mounts. We've actually got a resource guide available in our blogs under the Learn tab on newportvessels.com. So check that out if you need a little guidance there on whether or not your kayak needs an adapter or not and where you might find one. This Pro Angler 14 uses an adapter plate. It gives me the nice flat spot to bolt. The hardware kit with the NK180PRO includes 1/4-20 hardware for threading into most inserts on kayaks. You'll also use this with a lot of the adapter plates. So I've bolted this aluminum motor mount bracket to my adapter plate, and then I've installed that whole assembly without the motor to the kayak first. Newport's included in the hardware kit all the tools you need to complete the assembly of the NK180PRO. So when you go to put the retract bar on, you'll want to install the retract bar with the smaller hole at the bottom and the larger hole at the top. We'll get into why that is, but essentially this allows you to more easily clip the carabiner to the top of the retract bar that helps you retract the motor. Newport's also given the kit a prop wrench that makes installation and removal of the prop really easy. This prop is a little bit larger than the other prop. It is fairly weedless, but from time to time you'll want to pull the prop off to maintain it or inspect it, and so you'll want to hang on to that prop wrench that's included with the kit. When installing the prop, you'll want to use the prop wrench included to get the nut tight, but not over tight. So you want that to seat nice and tight so the nylon is engaged with the threads on this bolt, and then your prop's gonna be securely attached to the motor. And it really takes about 30 seconds to a minute to pull it off and service it and then thread it back on. So super easy. So working up from the motor, you'll install this collar first, and then the steering triangle with the V, the wide part of the V facing toward the prop, and that retract bar, small hole on bottom, large hole on top, and you want this angled part facing forward toward the user. That gives you a little more leverage when you retract the motor. In the setup process, once you've got your mount, your motor fully assembled, you'll want to just align the holes in the drum with those in the mounting bracket. And then you'll take this. This provides a nice security measure so that if you're transporting the kayak or you're in choppy conditions, it's not going to jostle loose. We've included little safety pins that go through this pin that goes all the way through the mount. So even if these do loosen up, they're not going to fall completely off. During the installation of the motor, one important thing to pay attention to is this set of 4 holes here at the bottom of the mounting bracket. This is your trim adjustment setting. So this stainless rod will go through at, I recommend starting on either the furthest forward hole or the second hole. I know that this particular model kayak, the motor runs best with the trim setting on the second hole, so I'm going to install it there and install my ring to the other side to secure the trim pin in place. And it's a good idea when you're on the water, if you have a friend along with you, to observe the posture of your kayak. If the trim is a little off, your bow is going to be either too buried or it's going to be too raised. So you kind of want that nice, even level to your kayak. You don't want the bow too up and you don't want it too down. If it's too down, you'll get a wet ride. If it's too up, you'll get a lot of hull slap. So having a friend just observe the posture of your kayak on the water can be super helpful. That'll kind of indicate after the first use where you think the ideal trim setting is for your kayak. One really nice thing about the NK180PRO is that the size and the weight of the motor allows you to rudder steer with most factory integrated rudders. So I've chosen to use the integrated kayak rudder that's pre-installed at the factory on this kayak to steer my kayak with the NK180PRO. But Newport does include coated stainless steering cables for attaching to the steering triangle and running up forward to either foot steering or some sort of aftermarket steering configuration if you want to have full mobility of the motor. Since I've chosen to rudder steer this motor, I've installed the steering lockout pin. So there's a little screw that threads down in through the steering triangle and secures the motor in the straight position. So I always know that I'm going straight, and then I just simply maneuver with my rudder that's factory integrated on the kayak. With the 300, you'll want to install that foot steering. You can get away with rudder steering this motor for its size and resistance it has traveling through the water really well. I really like that about the motor. One thing you'll notice about the NK180PRO over the original NK180 is that the quick disconnect plug is pre-installed to the motor, as well as the plug for the throttle control box. So those are all already on the motor, no installation, no bolting things together, it's already there. So you'll attach the other end of the quick disconnect plug to the battery, and then you have a seamless, quick connection to power and quick removal, so you can move the battery away to the charging source. When you're ready to connect to power, you want to use the preferred sequence, which is aligning the pins in the throttle control cable and connecting that first, and then mating the Anderson plug up and connecting to 24-volt power. We'll move up front to the throttle control box and test the throttle and make sure we're on the lithium setting, because we're using a lithium iron phosphate battery. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. But for now, let's cover how to connect the control lines to the NK180PRO. We've included both a reverse lockout pull handle and a retract pull handle in the kit with the motor. We've also included two different colored lines. One is for attaching to the reverse lockout mechanism. The other is for attaching to the retract bar. So based on the length of your kayak, you just need to figure out how much line you need and run out that much line, trim it. And I like to go through here. The crimp is pre-installed the one end of the provided control lines. So you want to run through these pad eyes first and then install the aluminum pull handle. But essentially what I've got going on here is the red knob. I'm going to use that with the gray line for attaching to the reverse lockout. So when you want to reverse, to prevent the motor from kicking out, you'll just simply pull on that cable. The handle will be up by your seat. You'll pull on that cable, and the latch will come down and it'll lock the motor in place, so the motor won't kick out when you reverse. When I'm underway, especially in tannic water or in a shallow water setting, I'll leave this reverse lockout latch unsecured. I want that motor to kick out automatically if I run aground or contact a submerged obstacle. So I'll leave that there under normal operation. Aside from docking and launching and landing, you don't have to use reverse a whole lot. So some people prefer in a deeper water setting to pull this forward, have the latch engaged and cleat it off. If you're in a shallow water setting, like I said, you'll want to leave that motor in free kick mode. I've attached the blue retract handle to the green line and run it through the pad eye. And I'm simply just gonna clip this carabiner, and all the carabiners are provided in the kit, but I'm gonna clip that right to the top of the retract bar. I'm gonna run the handle up near the seat so I can access it easily, and then you'll simply just pull on that line and it'll retract the motor. I like to tie a loop in this line so I can loop it around something that I've installed up front by the seat, and that way during launching and landing I can just have the motor retracted. I've protected my investment. If I'm going through a heavily weeded area, I can just pull that motor out of the water and either paddle or pedal and kind of avoid hanging up a bunch of debris. Once your motor is fully assembled, you've got it mounted up and you've got all the plugs connected, you're gonna wanna come up and test the throttle control box, make sure everything's functioning as expected. Newport's included a couple of these keys. One's pre-rigged to a safety line, which you'll want attached to your body at all times when you're underway. But let me show you how to start up the controller and test that everything's working. So you'll notice we've got power to the control box. It's got a voltage reading and you've got 2 sets of dashed lines there. You'll want to make sure that you choose the right battery setting. So the battery type is indicated by Li, meaning lithium, or D, meaning deep cycle. So I'm using a lithium battery. I'll want to select push mode until the correct battery type lithium is selected. And then I'll put my key on, and then I'll power it up just with a quick push on the power button. Next thing I'm going to do is move the throttle all the way forward to 100% and make sure that I reach 100%, which I do. And then I'm going to want to make sure I can hold a low throttle setting as well. This is going to be super critical during fishing scenarios. I'm all the way down to 3%, which is pretty much the lowest you'll use in a real life setting. I'm going to do the same thing in reverse, make sure I reach 100%. And I do, and then I'm gonna make sure I can hold a real low throttle percentage, and it should go all the way down to 1%, but that tells me I'm getting low enough. I hope this quick start video has helped you feel confident about your maiden voyage with your NK180 Pro. When you experience the 16% increased speed, 25% decreased noise, and 25% greater efficiency over the original NK180, you'll be super happy you chose NK180 Pro. Have fun out there, be safe, and remember, the way forward is electric.